Coming to you from Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, this is the Quinn Spinn. Hey now, and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all, to a brand new edition of the Quinn Spinn. I'm your host, Quinn. I'm back here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Stitcher, and more for another rousing and riveting installment of the official podcast of Underground Music Collective. And you just heard Rebel Nine's All I've Become. That's been our opening theme song here at the Quinn Spinn since the great year of 2014. And it will be until the very end of days. And I'm back once again for another Quinn Spinn solo mission, actually producing this one here at Helping Our Music Evolve in East Nashville, the heart of Music City, Tennessee. And I'm just in here. I had some studio time and thought I'd get in front of the mic, record an episode, maybe 2 episodes. Who knows? You never know when we're going to need a solo mission for the feed. So, yeah, here we are. But, these solo missions, again, they're a chance to just get in front of the microphone and just give some perspective. Give some perspective on life and times as a creative entrepreneur, as a human trying to build a platform like so many of you out there in our audience and within this greater underground music collective ecosystem, community. And that word, community, it's been a big one for me lately. I've really, over the past few months, over the past year even, have really started to look at that name, Underground Music Collective. And I've wanted to lean into that word collective and make this a more involved experience for our music community, for our creative community, for the community here in Nashville and beyond, right? And I don't really want this episode to turn into a PSA for all the exciting things coming up at Underground Music Collective, although I know there are many of those to come, so many exciting opportunities we've had lately, exciting things on the horizon. But I will say that over the past several weeks, I've had a chance to really tap into the community here in Nashville in a way that I haven't really done in a long time. I think through the pandemic, through other personal challenges, I kind of shut myself in. I kind of forgot what it was like to truly, fully immerse myself here in Nashville, to go out and be part of the action, to go out and engage regularly, to not just be this content creator behind the screen, right? And it's been so enriching. It's been so comforting to go out, engage this community, build community, share in what other people are doing, share what we're doing, and find ways to get stronger together. And it's been super inspiring for me, as somebody who, has always kind of, throughout the course of my life, struggled to really feel like I'm finding my niche, finding my place, finding my circle, right, at certain points. To realize that community is all around us, and that community is best found by how we show up, and by showing up as our true selves. Over the past year here on the show, I've been on a big tell your truth, tell it authentically kick, right? And I'm finding, through my own journey, I'm finding through the artists that I have the privilege of working with at the moment that there's so much power in just going out and just showing up as yourself and telling your story, yet there's so much fear that so many of us have in doing so, right? We're afraid of people's judgment. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of ridicule. We're afraid of falling on our faces, being embarrassed. That's why so many of us hold back. That's why so many of us play it safe. That's why so many of us don't quite go all the way for it. We kind of poke around at it. We work on our passions on the side, right? But we're afraid to really put ourselves out there and say, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. This is how I'm showing up every single day. And I know this because that's been me forever, really up until the past year, the first 30 years of my life. I listened to the limitations that other people would put on me, teachers, coaches, peers, significant others, certain relatives. I listen to those things and I internalize them and I believed them about myself, right? And over the past half decade, I'm 35 now, as I know I've mentioned on the show. So if you're playing the Quinn Spinn drinking game, I just mentioned my age. Go and drink. Over the past 5 years, I've slowly, and sometimes kicking and screaming, had to come to terms with the fact that other people's judgments, other people's limitations that they place on us and on our stories and the ways that we show up and present it and tell it, that's merely a projection of what they're insecure about. Your story is not for everyone. Your story is going to alienate some people. It's going to outright piss some people off, right? If it's not in alignment with their values, if it's not in alignment with what they believe, with the certain limitations they place upon themselves, right? Even so, your audience is out there. Your audience, your community, the people that you will connect with, that will resonate with you and who you are and what you're about and what you bring to the table. They're out there, but you will only find them by telling your truth, by telling it fearlessly, by telling it authentically, and by not being afraid of judgment, by not being afraid of ridicule, by not being afraid of getting ostracized by those who just don't get it, right? And this is something, I'm working with a lot of clients on right now, is how do you find your community? You communicate your values. And a lot of my clients have resistance about communicating their values because they're not quite sure how it's going to be received. No matter what, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, no matter how you show up in the world, no matter how kind you are to people, there's going to be someone somewhere out there who doesn't appreciate you, who doesn't like you, who doesn't care for how you show up in the world. That person, those people, are not your audience. They're not your tribe. They're not your community. However, by catering to those people, you deprive the people who are your tribe, who are your community, of truly connecting with you. And as I go forward in my own life, this is something that I'm just trying to put into practice every day. And as the angry therapist John Kim says, another great podcast, I mention it all the time here on the show now, it's called putting it into practice because it's a daily practice. You don't just say, I'm going to show up authentically and I'm going to show up fearlessly and I don't care who thinks anything about it one day and then all of a sudden it just sticks forever. No, we have to practice this. We have to get comfortable. We have to continue to work on that, right? Because if we don't continue to work on it, those skills erode like any other skill. And then we have to work back up to them. The best way is to keep practicing showing up as your true self, telling your story, encouraging the people around you to do that, because that's how we build community. That's how we inspire each other. That's how we push each other forward. And that's something you're going to see starting to make its way even more into Underground Music Collective, into the Quinn Spinn, Nash Live, is the sense of how are we showing up for each other? What are we communicating out there? How are we building bonds and building community that transcend music, that transcend business, and enhance and enrich our human experience? That's what it's about. That's the purpose. We all have a purpose. Put your voice behind yours, and you'll see who your tribe is. That's what I've got for you today. That was one take. I think that was pretty good. I don't know. Let me know, when you go in the comments or leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You could leave a 5-star review there as well. You can also listen to the Quinn Spinn, 2 N's and Quinn, 2 N's and Spin on Google Podcasts, Anchor, Stitcher, and many more platforms. You can also watch these episodes on YouTube because I'm recording this right now, video-wise as well as audio. You can also learn more about the show at undergroundmusiccollective.com, our central hub for all things independent music, community, storytelling, and more. Find the UMC 20 playlist on Spotify. That's updated every week with 20 fresh tracks of fire. I'm not editing that. This is a real podcast by a real person. You can also find nashlive.live and find out about some shows coming up here in the greater Nashville area. I completely botched that outro. I am not editing it because I just talked to you for 10 minutes about telling your truth and being authentic. So that would be a complete cop-out. Anyway, Rebel 9's all I've become. Gonna take us out like it brought us in, and I'll see you next time.